Howdy, hello everyone. This particular clip is about politics and society, where your personal beliefs, combined with the personal beliefs of everyone else you've ever known and many people you've never known and never will, all of that mixes together. That's what forms politics. And politics in all the different cities, municipalities, counties, states, and nations in the world make up our global society. So let's see the basics of how this works. I think a troubling but accurate way to look at this is through battle and war, conflict. War is an inherently, which means basically and all the time, war is an inherently unstable interaction of three things: intense emotion, politics, and luck. Now, with any luck, our politics will not result in intense emotions, but if you put one of these things completely out of balance, it tends to topple and make difficult the other two. Let's try to, I don't know, weigh things so that they move towards being more civil and loving and just. And if they don't, at least finding enough connection to the people around us to help keep us all relatively safe. Basically, all politics comes down to is these four questions. Now, these four questions should be applied to every one of my lessons: your math lessons, your science lessons, your social studies lessons. It should be to how you wipe your bottom and what products you buy at the store. What are you for? What are you against? Who are you for? Who are you against? Answering those four questions at any moment in time will tell you a lot about what your political aims are. Basically, and I think I'm paraphrasing Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. here, but a man who believes nothing will fall for anything. So a really good rule in life is if you don't have a position, if you're being neutral, you're actually not being neutral. Your inactions can be as powerful as your actions. So if you don't know the answers to these four in any context you're in, you're just waiting for somebody to tell you what to think you are for and what you're against and who you are for and against. I don't know about you, but I'd rather have control over my own feelings in this regard. Now, we are taught in your school and on the television and online, it appears, especially here in the United States of America, that we are often inculcated, as a fancy way of saying, taught in a forced way, I suppose. We're often taught that politics is binary. It's a fancy way of saying a struggle between two opposite sides: Democrat, Republican, conservative, liberal, black, white, male, female. I reject this idea. I think politics is a little more messy than that. Nothing is really that simple. Politics has actually significantly more to do with this. These are called murmurations. They're groups of thousands of birds. And those birds almost look like a living being when they're all put together. crazy is that only 3 to 4 simple rules tell these groups how to move. And the birds individually, they're not reacting to the whole, they're only reacting to their neighbor. That's a lot like politics. In fact, there are ways for us to map human behavior into 3 dimensions, on a computer. And what do we see? We see murmurations, just like flocks of birds. Yeah, human behavior actually resembles these flocks, these murmurations, almost perfectly. So while we're taught that politics is about left and right, Democrat and Republican, in reality, it's, frankly, a bird brain game. Now, this wants to repeat, I see. Ultimately, none of us can truly understand the true complexity of our beautiful world, just like the birds can't understand they're forming these beautiful structures in the sky. On the left, we can see the Amalfi Coast in Positano, Italy. I have actually walked these streets, injured my knees quite badly. You see a bubble mid-burst with a high resolution and a high-speed camera. That's what the bubbles you blow as a little kid. Or if you're playing with little kids, because if little kids want you to play with bubbles, you better do it. And those are real mountains. I can't recall where they were from. I think it might be somewhere in South America. But y'all, look at that. I mean, how did all that form? How did all that come together? Well, it turns out remarkably similar rules, which means we can understand a little fraction of the complexity that is out there. And together, we can understand much more. I mean, take a look at this. This is just a chart of the major fractions from 0 all the way to, 1. These are just the fractions in between 0 and 1. And of course, there's more than this. But arranging them in such a perfect and beautiful way, I gotta say, that's pretty cool. It hints at a greater order to things, either an order that we create with our imaginations or one that exists in the real. This is the periodic table of elements, put in a way that most people haven't seen before. We're used to seeing it as a bunch of squares, but this one shows it a little bit differently. The details at the moment do not matter, but there's order and beauty in this world. Politics, there's order and beauty in politics, and there's order and beauty in the clouds here above what most of us would call Acoma Pueblo. Okay, but Acoma is a Spanish word, and I will respectfully not try to speak the name of the traditional name of the Acoma nation, but you can see it there on the right. Those clouds move like murmurations, but instead of birds moving, it's water capsules and heat being transferred from the earth and the sky and intermixing in between. And there's this beauty in our structures, as we can see here as well. There's beauty in our massive cathedrals. This is La Sagrada Familia of Antoni Gaudí, which was started in the 1800s and should be completed probably sometime in the next decade. I have been in this building several times. Those, by the way, all of that, with the exception of the little tiny bulbs here, everything in here is natural light. You can see electrical lights here. Actually, I don't think these are. These are actually sun coming from above. And then this, I don't have a picture of it here, but it's massive, massive. That's approximately 150 feet tall, and then it goes up another 300 feet from there. It's an incredible structure. But the math that describes these structures, again, when you compare it to the math that describes politics, they're almost identical. We have the beauty and the fractal nature of all music. All music is self-similar and in fact can be mapped. So if we can't understand it all, but we can kind of get hints from all of these different places, then what can we really understand? Are we just a mob? Are we just a gang pretending to be civilized? Well, on one level, yeah. But it's generally something a little bit more than that. Basically, Earth and its natural cycles is the real boss of all of this. And since the Earth is so much bigger and so much more complex than us, it balls to read what's on the screen. Earth and its natural cycles is, in the long run, in the long term, indifferent to our health and happiness. Earth does not care about us. Earth is only about life itself. So let's remember that. Natural law is billions of years old. Human law is less than 5,000 years old. We are not like a boss. Earth is. And we need to remember that. Now, we can either sit there in awe, A-W-E, and horror at how insignificant we are compared to the knowledge and the time of the planet, or maybe we could learn from it as, well, as if it's a teacher. And it has, clearly, billions of years of intelligence and knowledge to teach us, if we're willing to learn. So when we talk about in official class the legislative, executive, and judicial branch, which are things that you do need to understand, we need to understand their proper place. It's just one of at least 3 or 4 dimensions that form society. Natural law, and then what Dr. King called the 3 evils of materialism, war, and racism, and what W.E.B. Du Bois talked about as virtue meeting brute force, decency doing in the face of insult, honesty in the face of lies and deception, and integrity in the face of adversity. All of that is deep, deep, deep within humans, just like the birds have certain rules that determine how they move. Those ideas in the center, plus natural law, like physics and chemistry and biology, those are ultimately under the surface of what we think of as the economy of society and polity, which basically is economics, society, and politics. And each of those has particular faces as well, and we will hit those bit by bit as the semester moves forward. To simplify this, you can think of it, well, like this. We've got economy on the left with money, polity, which is politics, on the bottom. Again, people thinking it's binary. It's just 2 people versus 2 people. And, society, kumbaya, love one another right now. On the right, in the center, we have happy dancing children. But Earth is not involved. This is much more complicated than just legislative, executive, and judicial, but it's still very positivistic. It's very optimistic that this is the way things work. There's also the pessimistic perspective that the economy is about greed, politics is about conflict, and society is about disconnection. And that's leaving the earth burning away because of our behavior. Is this true? Yes, it's equally true to the first idea. And so it really does come down to, what are we going to choose to do? Are we going to put people and organizing ourselves as people ahead of organizing ourselves as Republicans and Democrats, as leftists and right-wingers, as what are we going to do? Are we going to, well, let's repeat it. Who are we for? Who are we against? What are we for? What are we against? I can't speak for anyone else but myself, but I do believe the evidence is pretty clear that when we organize for one another, even when we disagree, we are always fighting for we the people, the world is better and the lives of people are much better when we do that. So it really comes down to, in politics, if we want to just focus just on politics, it's about a sense of belonging, us understanding our natural limits, and us understanding ourselves and loving ourselves. Now, loving yourself doesn't necessarily mean you like yourself all the time. It doesn't mean you think you do no wrong. Self-love is like, wow, I look down at my panza, my belly, and I'm like, ooh, goodness, well, I love me, but I don't like that. I need to respect me more than that. And so talking a little bit of smack to yourself in an effort to make yourself better overall is actually probably healthy. Love is dangerous because love allows you to say and do things you would normally not do with people you can't trust. And that's why I really think it's important that we consider self-love as the pinnacle, as the top of what we do with politics. And what's going to do the most to help me and my family should be at the forefront of our politics. Unfortunately, what ends up happening is people start putting the oppression of others in front of their own well-being. Well, I don't want welfare recipients to get money because I don't get money. Black lives matter. Oh, they matter more than mine? Then I don't like black lives. And those, I understand where those are coming from. I just very passionately, on a personal level, disagree. I think that if self-love is only about the self, if self-love is only about you and your family and people like your family, then you're cutting yourself off from the beauty and the diversity of human experience and from the beauty and diversity of all life on Earth. So we want to, self-love isn't just about being selfish. Self-love is about extending that love to every living thing on this planet. And so, no matter what masks we put on, no matter what tribes we consider ourselves a part of, in other words, what groups, I would personally prefer this sort of diversity over anything else. Each of them, again, has eyes, mouths, ears, some kind of head theme going on here, and yet each of them is beauty in and of their own way. We might prefer one over the other, but all of them are things of beauty and interest to the human soul. Why would anybody cut themselves off from it? I will not understand, but that's just a personal approach. Or you can just say that, well, I'm good, you're bad. I'm good, you're evil. I'm of God and you are of the devil. Okay, that's been practiced for thousands and thousands of years and has led to a lot of problems. I have the most glorious leader in the world. I have the best religion in the world. We have the best people. Our soldiers are heroes, and everybody else are invaders. Everybody else are savages. Brutalidad. Los bárbaros, the barbarians. Oh, my religion's good, but your religion, that's just primitive. Ugh. Real people don't believe in that. And my leader's good, and he does no wrong, but that leader, he's evil. Well, all this does is it divides us, and it takes our attention away from building a better, more beautiful world for ourselves and our children. So, in the end, politics in this class is going to not just be about politicians. It's actually about all of us, our values, beliefs, needs, and wants. And in order to get these things, we, the people, together, must act as people, not just individual persons, not just as individual tribes of all lives matter, Okay, now Black Lives Matter is a little bit different because it's a representation of the fact that there are systems in place that hurt particular groups of people disproportionately. The poor end up getting hurt worse than the wealthy. And within the poor, if you're Black or Native American, you tend to get considerably more hurt by these systems that are in place to keep certain people powerful. We really have to be we the people, and not to ignore color. To be colorblind in some ways is to lie to ourselves. We all notice how someone looks. We notice if we think of them as male or female. If they're outside of the norm, for instance, me in a pretty dress, you'll notice that too. What you do with the information next, well, that's what really matters. There's a couple of people who are really involved in politics here in Albuquerque, and these people are either people who dress as women and happen to be male, or might be transsexual, transgendered. Okay, I notice right away. But then I'm like, oh, yeah, but I'm not here for a relationship with that person. I'm here to organize we the people in a way that helps us love, be loved, and become something more. It helps me act as people, not just persons. But to ignore this person's identity entirely, to pretend that being Black in America is the same thing as being white, or being female is exactly the same as being male, or gay or is the same thing as being straight. No. Each of these pieces of our identity are important. We must acknowledge them and then move to find common ground. When we do that, we the people have a better life together. In other words, the world we keep waiting for is found within our own imaginations and at the end of our arms. We are the change we have been waiting for. And if we continue to wait for others to act for us, it will never happen. We have to understand that politics is not just about CNN and Univision. Politics is the socially organized expression of all that we value, who we are for, who we are against, what we are for, what we are against. Politics is the expression of many minds working together to act, or sometimes to not act. Politics is the expression of our cultural and social DNA. Politics is the science of how we express what and who we are for and against.